let me start like right from the beginning. I was a foster kid from I was 8 months old when I was put in foster care because my older brother had just died. Um, which we later found out was technically a genetic issue because the whole colon thing is probably with me is probably actually related to that because we're pretty sure it's genetic because it's
Hmm.
not just one of us. Um, and then I was adopted when I was 3.5. So I've had a lot of surgeries. I've had 60 surgeries now.
Wow.
Um, since I was born, my first one I was a few hours old.
Wow.
I was a few hours old, and it was because I have spina bifida, so they had to close my back because when you're born with spina bifida, your spinal cord is basically like protruding through your back, so it's like an open area. And all the longer that it's exposed, the longer that the more nerve damage that you can end up with.
Yeah.
And at the time, spina bifida was not very known at all. Like there had been no research done on it. There was no fetal surgery available. There was nothing. Um, but even with that, I was still luckier than anybody born before me. So there was that factor. Um, because anybody born before me would have even less access to the resources I had.
Yeah.
So, um, but going back to the whole trans thing and being adopted, it was more. I've noticed though in like the adoptive community that some adoptive parents kind of pick and choose. Like they want this child to be a specific way, and when they're
Yeah.
not, they don't like
Yeah.
it. And because I wasn't exactly for their expectations, they didn't like it. Because I'm not just trans, I'm also gay. Once I turned 18, they were like, no, we're taking over your medical care, which ended me up in a whole other situation because then they had access over all my medical care. They had access to what surgeries I could and couldn't have, which a lot of times my surgeon had to overrule it because they wouldn't let me have the surgeries I needed to save my life. They definitely brushed it off.
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so EDS,
Yeah,
gastroparesis,
yeah,
POTS or postural
yeah.
orthostatic
Tachycardia.
tachycardia syndrome. You went sepsis.
That's where I feel a lot of because my mom does have menopause in my proxy, and that's where we noticed it was when I went septic when I lost my leg because
Oh, okay.
it's when she got worse because there was all this attention going on her. So, which for people with that, it's not a good thing to give them too much attention because that's what they thrive off of, which is what my psychiatrist explained to me. Um, they thrive off of having that attention. So once they see they can get that attention, they try to get more of it, if that makes sense.
This is you're talking about your foster
My adoptive mom.
adopted mom? Okay. And
Yeah.
you're just saying that the way that she hasn't been accepting of uh you, it was she herself was getting in, she was kind of getting in the way of you getting care for these conditions that you're starting to learn about.
Yeah. And once I went septic, I was about to lose my leg. Um, and the one of the nurses literally is the reason that I have as much about my leg as I do, because she made sure my mom would not be in the room when that surgeon came. She told my mom that the surgeon wasn't coming for another 2 hours when she knew the surgeon was coming in 10 minutes.
So that that wasn't a
Uh-huh.
distraction from you being able to get the answers that you needed about what they were about to do, right? Because they then told you
Well,
you hadn't lost your leg at that point, right? But they were
yeah,
starting to explain.
that, but also she wanted me to lose more of my leg than I needed to.
Oh, okay.
So, and my nurse overheard it. So she was like, go for a coffee or something. It was something along those lines. That's all I know. And so they did that. And the doctor came in and was like, you only have to lose this much. But I still ended up losing a little bit more than I wanted to. But that was more just to preserve it. Um, but in regards to if she would have let me got the medical care that I needed to in the beginning, I would still have my leg.
And the reason why you lost your leg again was related to the sepsis. Can you back up a little bit and kind of explain how that was connected?
Related to the sepsis. So it was because of the blood loss in my leg. But so the medical field has labeled it under Munchausen by proxy because of the fact it was due to her not allowing me to get the care in time.
Why were you losing blood from your leg?
Because I was in surgery and it was a huge surgery and I had just lost 6 units of blood from my kidney surgery. Made me
Oh,
lose a lot of blood. It was a really complicated surgery. It was supposed to be a 2 hour surgery. It turned into 14 hours.
okay. So you were having your kidney take removed.
Yeah.
And was this before or after the colon removed?
No, this was before. And then
Before.
2 weeks later, we noticed weird things showing up where they just took me off the TPN and they tried me on food, and I just couldn't tolerate it. So, me being me, I just thought it was a gastroparesis flare. I was like, probably just my gastroparesis. Like, no biggie. But then my doctor was like, why don't we do a CT scan just to be sure? Because this was my urologist and he's amazing. Um, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? So he does the CT scan and he's like, yeah, so we're taking you to the OR right now.
Wow,
Because,
right away.
yeah, he's like, because your colon has ruptured and leaking into your stomach.
Oh, goodness. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it was scary. Um, so end up going in the OR, getting rid of everything that was bad in my stomach. Um, Ended up with an ileostomy, back on TPN because at that point I was down to 69 pounds.
You're saying this was only like 2 weeks after you lost your kidney?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, Ryder.
And in between that, I lost my leg too.
because of the lack of blood flow
Yeah,
to your leg.
because like this was September 2019. So the 9th, I've lost my kidney. The 15th, I lost my leg. And the 29th, I lost my colon.
Oh my heck! You're lucky to be with us.
Oh, I'm
Bit of a
really
miracle.
lucky. My surgeon literally told me he still has nightmares. I was in the ICU after my colon. I ended up getting a really bad pressure sore on my back because none of the nurses would move me. So I ended up with a pressure sore like so bad that it was down to the bone. So I ended up with another surgery to fix that, plus a wound back for 2 months.
Oh my gosh! And you're also dealing with the EDS and the fact that you've got dislocations sometimes that have happened,
Yeah.
and that goes about how far back does that go?
My
How far
first
back?
location that I remember very well was when I was 8. I was getting out of the pool and I heard my hip just pop. I was like, "Okay, that doesn't feel right." And like we chalk that up to just hip dysplasia because I have hip dysplasia since I was 2 months old.
Mm-hmm.
I dislocated my hip when I was 2 months old because I thought I was, could do anything. And I couldn't
And
walk
so
yet.
you've just had different painful dislocations since then, right? Just through
Yeah.
that's just been part of, aside
Well,
from these acute things that
yeah.
happened that were risking your life.
But like the funny thing with me is like sometimes I'll have them and not know I have them.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you go through with your POTS? What's some of the symptoms that you go through
So I just pass out a lot, basically.
with the blood flow?
It's whenever I go from sitting to standing, I'll just pass out.
Yeah, real fast.
And it's even worse in the heat, which is why
So
a
you
lot of
have oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
which is why a lot of times in the heat I just won't walk around. I'll just use my chair because it gets so hot that I almost pass out. And like another thing that people probably don't realize is if you're a below leg amputees, um, like any lower limb amputees, use way more energy than anybody else. I think it was 150% more, and then for a double amputee, it would be 300% more.
Hmm. And you've had 60 surgeries? Wow.
Yeah, I've had a lot of surgeries. I just had my 60th because I just had my gender affirming surgery back in July. Yeah, so July 6th.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I just had my gender affirming top surgery. Um, which is kind of this is kind of funny actually because it was just for gender issues, but it ended up helping a lot of my chronic issues.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Yeah. The benefits that you gained from that wasn't just um, what that did to you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but that impacted the physical conditions that you're going through as well. That's how much of a positive impact it's had on you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Um so like it helps with my standing. I can stand way straighter now. It helps with just walking in general. Like my chronic pain is a lot less. Like it's not gone. It'll never be gone, but it's a lot less than it was, which is really good.
Talk to me a little bit about some of the things that you go through with these conditions that we've talked about: EDS, POTS.
For me, because a lot of EDSers are super flexible, and I wasn't as much, but that's because my spina bifida makes me more stiff, if that makes sense. So like I'm still pretty flexible though for having spina bifida. So that's how they were able to pick up on it. Because they were like, that doesn't seem right. Like once I finally got to the geneticist and they realized I had spina bifida, they're like, that doesn't seem right. Like you're really flexible even for having spina bifida. Um, because
Yeah.
the spina bifida side of it just makes you more rigid and doesn't let you hyperextend as much. But I was still dislocating and I still had every other symptom. And I got my diagnosis for gastroparesis and POTS before I got my diagnosis for EDS.
Okay.
And because they knew I had gastroparesis and I had POTS, they were like, okay, wait, that's like a secondary condition to EDS. So that's how they were even able to find out that I had it.
Find it.
Because, like, my diagnosis was, it took a while. It should have happened a lot quicker, but it didn't. And it was
You
solely because they blame it on my spina bifida. I got treated differently because they would treat me fine until they realized I was trans.
and
Like
and
they
that's where my heart breaks, because I mean, I like I said, I've got people that um, uh, are in the LGBT community of in my family, and they're and friends, and they're some of the most amazing souls on the planet. I have great love for them and a sensitivity for them, and so that's why I feel the same as well as I'm kind of hearing as that pertains to just your care. I'm 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 glad to hear that you're feeling like that's improving some, because
yeah.
you know, I mean,
Well, like when everything started going down with like my medical care and everything, and at the end of it, once we finally got it all sorted, I literally sent out I think 10 or 15 emails to different people in the health system that week. And I was like, we have to make sure this doesn't happen again. How many of these trans chronically ill people are not seeking treatment because they're scared to because of how people perceive them,
yeah, yeah,
right? Like we
yeah.
have we have like four major hospitals in my city and I can only go to one safely. At the end of the day, like I said, I don't care what anybody else thinks of me at the end of the day, but I do care about my safety. I've told them in the past, I was like, the only time that my biological gender should be brought up is if my issue is relating to that issue. It took me going through six different surgeons to find somebody that would take me because of my EDS,
Okay.
because of the way we heal, because of our crappy collagen. So, like, that's a whole other issue because they didn't even care about my spina bifida or anything else. They really didn't. They were like, okay, well, whatever. But the minute they saw the EDS, they were like, oh,
Hmm.
that's a problem. And so I found one surgeon, and I mean, it didn't even turn out how I wanted it to. I do have still have some complications. Thankfully, I have a surgeon that will fix it because he's just pretty good. One of the surgeons that's going to fix it is actually the top in Canada. When the main media does it, when they share our stories, they like to focus on the bad parts.
How do you feel about the people that are around you, just kind of locally? Do you feel like that you've got a good support group
I
now?
do, but I'm part of a lot of LGBTQ things. So that helps. There's a lot of trans EDSers.
You're connecting with people that are not only in the LGBTQ community, but you're also connecting with people that are in the pain community. Do you feel like that's improving, or do you have any particular challenges that you wanted to talk about of what you?
I mean, to be honest, I'm not really outside of those communities very often
Okay.
because a lot of like I play sledge hockey, so that's a disabled sport. And
Okay.
my swimming team is a para swim team. When I ski, it's a para ski program. The amount of education I've had to do within the disabled community, not even the chronic illness community. Chronic illness community is a whole other thing because they seem to be more understanding. I think the reason that the chronic illness community and the chronic pain community understands is because a lot of times we are misunderstood. Like the
Yes.
chronic illness community as a whole is always misunderstood and we're
Yeah.
never taken seriously. So something like trans, it's not that they completely understand it, but they're willing to try to understand. Even in the chronic pain community, there are a lot of LGBTQ people. Just a lot of them just aren't always out. You don't know everybody's story um, to the full extent unless you start seeing them as a human. And what we do with our bodies is ours, nobody else's.
Just the basics. Golden rule. It's been even more painful because of what you've gone through with your upbringing and in society. And I know that you've had moments where you're just by yourself, and the pain is just more than any. And I am so sorry.
My chronic pain is mostly phantom pain, but a big part of it is spinal pain. I've had two spinal surgeries.
It sounds like you're kind of at a place where you've got some good friends, you got some good circle groups.
And it's the reason I got into swimming because it's the
Okay.
only thing that relieves it. I'm probably going to have to take this year off, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, because you're still healing and stuff.
Yeah, I'm allowed to get back on the ice in 2 weeks, but I'm not allowed to swim yet.
Increase awareness, get conversation about hard things going, and have it be done in a way that is positive, and for people that have the courage to put themselves out there and share their story, to be esteemed and to be looked up to, and have it be an inspiration and not a stigma. And I really hope that we've been able to achieve that here with you, Ray. You're certainly deserving and worthy of that. You're a warrior. I look up to you in so many ways. Again, I really appreciate you coming on and cheering you on. We'll continue to follow you. And, Nell would have loved to have been here. She's not feeling well, and she gives her love as well.
Yes.
But, thank you for following us and being a part of what we're trying to do.